So, hi, everybody. Thank you for joining the Adaptive Cards community call in April 2021. We're almost 2.5 years into these, so I appreciate you all taking time out of your day to join us. I'm Matt Heidinger. I'll be your host, but really I'll be in the background today because we've got two guest speakers. We've got Mikhailo. So hopefully I'll try and say it better as I get to know him better. He's going to show us the Company Communicator app that his team has built. Heavily takes advantage of adaptive cards, so that'll be a kind of cool case study we'll dive into, and he'll show a demo of that. And then Ojasvi, you've seen a bunch of times on here talking about Teams updates. We've got some cool stuff to share regarding Teams. Some stuff went from dev preview to GA, and I think we'll see some live demos from that today. So with that, let's just kind of jump right in. Thank you both for being here, and we're going to start off with Mikhailo and the Company Communicator. So I will advance these slides. So why don't you take it away?
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. Hi, everyone. My name is Mikhailo Sidorchuk. I am Senior Program Manager in Microsoft Digital Employee Experiences Team Productivity. Gosh, that's a mouthful. And as Matt mentioned, the Company Communicator app, which I'm going to walk through today and do the demo, it's all about the adaptive cards. So actually, this solution, it was built by the product group, and it's provided to all of you through the GitHub. So there is a set of Teams app templates, and Company Communicator is just one of those templates. So what does this solution do? So the main goal of the Company Communicator is to enable communicators to create and send messages intended for multiple teams or large audiences inside of their organizations, and to send those messages in Teams through chat or channels, and to reach employees right where they collaborate, meaning in Teams. The original template was had to be a little bit adjusted to be used inside of Microsoft, and the main changes that we made were including support of multiple apps and bots. So the original template only could handle a single authoring dashboard and a single communicator bot. And inside of Microsoft, obviously, we have multiple communication teams and also multiple divisions which have a need to have their own way to communicate with their users. And because of that, we have extended the solution to utilize multiple communication channels. Also, our communications team, they not always have a need to send to a DL or a list of team members. So because of that, they sometimes are sending to some custom list of recipients. So because of that, we've also extended the solution to take a custom CSV file as an input and then process all those users as recipients. Another change was full support for custom adaptive cards. So the initial template, it just had a couple of fields which the communicators fill in, and based on that data, the adaptive card is created. But that was not sufficient because I'll show it during the demo later, but we had a need to send more customized messages, and full support of adaptive cards could cover that, because as you know, adaptive cards can be whatever you want them to be. Another change is direct image embedding. So by default, the solution supported image embedding using the URL. However, sometimes communication teams have a need to secure the image so the image is not exposed publicly. And we have figured a way to directly embed the image into the card and then send it to all recipients, so the image is not available by publicly accessible URL. And the last but not least change is programmatic message sending via API. So right now we are thinking about Company Communicator as truly as a platform, and right now the solution can be extended and have other apps or services tapping into it and sending messages through the centralized platforms that we control, that we have audit for, and utilize this technology to send messages in Teams to target recipients. So this is the high-level overview of the app. So what we've done recently was a pilot program. So initially, our communications team, obviously, were looking for different ways to communicate to employees, and Teams is the most obvious way because that's where employees stay doing their daily work. And in order not to break that flow of work, we communication teams wanted to reach out to employees in Teams. And we've also done some initial case study with members of our Elite program. Elite is the internal Microsoft dog fooding program where users are testing new features. And we did an original round, and majority of users have shown an interest to receiving communication in Teams versus just email. So we went ahead, we've started the project, implemented the changes, and then we've started like the full-blown pilot program with Elite, and we had 600 members enrolled in the program. We've sent them multiple messages, and you can see the example of those messages on the screenshot. So the messages were around Teams best practices, just Elite program overview, company communicator details, and so on. So overall, the performance of the solution was that we've been able to send 600 messages under 1 minute, and 100% success rate for all of the users who had the bot enabled or like pushed them. So what did we learn from the Elite program? Overall, the users were very satisfied with receiving communication in Teams, and for majority of the users, getting reading the adaptive card contents and getting the message conveyed in that card were very intuitive and easy. 97% of respondents were satisfied with receiving communications via chat. And also, we've been really curious to hear if the communication through Teams is disruptive or not disruptive for the users. And the majority of responders, like 67%, would want to receive communication in chat at least 2 to 3 times a week. So the users, so the conclusion that we made, the users are very open to receive communication in Teams and adopt this like new ways of working and shifting their workloads fully into Teams. So with that, I'll just go to the demo, and I'm going to share my screen and walk you through the solution. The app itself consists of 2 parts. We have the bot based on Microsoft Bot Framework, and the bot is the interface for the end users, and the end users are receiving the communications from the bot, and you can see like one communication on my screen as an example. The second part of the app is the authoring dashboard, and it is used by communication managers to craft and send messages to their target audiences. So I'm in that environment right now, and I'll just create a new message and show you how that initial screen looks. So we have a couple of fields, and the fields are pretty intuitive. So we have title, you can upload and embed the image, summary, author, and we can also add a button to the card. And on the right side, we can see the card previews of the communication teams. They can see exactly how the comms would look based on what they specify here. So I already have some message drafted. So just an example for HR communications. We have employee town hall today, so it's a really good use case for HR team to remind all users that there is an important event in the company and the event is coming today. A note about the image. So we can embed the image using the direct URL to the image, and also we can upload the image. And by image upload, actually what we are doing, we are base64 encoding the image and then storing the image in the bot database. So then we can use this encoded string and embed it directly into the card. And by doing so, the image does not go outside of the bot environment, and all the users would receive the image directly in their card. In terms of the button, we can specify the URL and then button title, and this button will be displayed to all recipients. Then second, after we have composed the message, we need to define who will be receiving the message, and we have multiple options here. So we can send the message to the general channel of the specific teams. We can send in chat to specific people, meaning members of the team. So over here, I'm just going to send it to all members of HR users MS team. Other options are sending to M365 group, distribution group, security group, and then we can also upload the custom CSV file and process all recipients. Last option is sending in chat to everyone who are in scope of this bot. So I'm just going to go ahead and send it to my HR users team, save it as draft. After it's saved as draft, we can also preview the card in the general channel of the team. Just go here, and this is my card, so looks good. Yep, we are ready to send it. Going back to the authoring dashboard and triggering the send. Final confirmation screen, making sure that we are sending it to the right recipients and no errors on the card. Once the message is sent, on the back end, Azure Data Function processes the message and just triggers the bot message to all target recipients in scope. And I just got a message from company communicator app, and here is my message. So the app is very straightforward, and the target audience is communication manager. So it's very intuitive and easy to use. Different use case is composing a fully custom adaptive card. So also we can just embed the card payload and send the card that we have composed in Adaptive Cards Designer. So I'm just gonna go and use my favorite sample. Thanks for providing that, Matt. Just love this designer. We've been using it a lot, and I can't tell you how many times we've been using this specific card. So I'm just copying the card payload, going back to the bot, pasting it here, and boom, exactly as it was in the designer. So it's the beauty of adaptive cards that we can reuse them in this solution as well. So just going to send this message to the general channel of our authors team, save as draft, and sending. Again, one additional verification, turn to send. Oh, and by the way, after the message was processed, we can also download the report and see like how much time it would take to send the message, failure and success rates, and we can also export detailed results, which would include all users who had been processed and their respective status of the communication. And going back to the general channel of our HR authors team. So this is the card which was sent to the bot. Just a quick touch on the technology behind the scenes. So it's available again in the GitHub template. But in order to compose this like default adaptive card, we are just using adaptive cards library, and based on the information that the users had input, like title, image link, summary, author, and so on, we are just creating an adaptive card. And adaptive card creator, it's again like we are utilizing the adaptive card library, and we are just taking the values provided by the communications team and composing the card from them. So it's very straightforward and very easy to extend if you need to do so. So that's pretty much it I have for today. Please let me know in the chat if you have any questions, and I'll try to answer those. Thank you.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, the chat was lively, I will say. Tons of discussion. I think you actually, in your and my discussion, I think we knew ahead of time this was going to come up. A lot of talk about base64 encoded images. Do you want to speak to that real quick? And I'll also, while you're formulating your answer to that, normally our chat doesn't have that much back and forth, so it's easy for me to scroll back and see which questions. So if anyone did not get a question answered, why don't you feel free to go ahead and put your hand up right now, and then we can talk it over on the audio. And if we missed your chat or someone hasn't helped you, just go ahead and ping it, and we'll get through. I'm trying to scroll through it live, but it's also a little tricky with all the stuff going on. So yeah, Mikhailo, do you want to explain a little bit about the base64 encoding?
Yeah, absolutely. So the image is just encoded into base64 string and stored in the database and then embedded into the card. But obviously, we are subject to the adaptive card size limitation. So we every time we need to make sure that the encoded image is still up to that size limit. And because of that, we have noticed a somewhat drop in the image quality. But unfortunately, we have to just live with that, because I mean, if a communications team doesn't want the drop in the image quality, then they can embed the image using the URL. But if the image has to be like private, then unfortunately there is no other way to embed it rather than encode and reduce the quality.
And now we've talked about, so there was a chat, Ojasvi, I'm going to put you on the spot here real quick, because I did see some chat about is the max 25 kilobytes, or some people were saying maybe it had gone up. I know we were looking at increasing the payload size. Has anything changed on that front?
So I think Nikita replied in the chat. So 28 is the max kilobyte for the message size within Teams. And I think the adaptive card payload is limited to 16. So we are definitely working on expanding that in the future. Yeah. So we're taking that up as a work item in Q2. So hopefully we can address it by Q3.
Okay, cool. And Nikita, did you want to add anything, or is that cover it?
Oh, just we got it.
Okay, cool.
I just should add that if you follow Stack Overflow, that's something that comes up really, really often.
Yeah.
People get weird errors because their cards are not sent into Teams, and then it turns out it's a size limit. So it happens really, really often.
I saw someone suggesting a potential warning in the designer itself that if we do exceed the payload limit. I think that's a really good suggestion. It's come up a handful of times, but I think it is one of those ones that I would start to argue for. We do have a pretty large backlog with our limited team, but that one, I do agree that it does generate a lot of questions and stuff and just confusion, which is the worst part because you don't really know why it failed. The question I had too on that for really the room, and feel free to add in the chat, and also Mikhailo, we've talked about adding authenticated image support to say SharePoint URLs, basically things that are within your same tenant, so that we could technically use the same auth that you're logged into with Teams. Would that meet a lot of the needs? Would it meet half of the image needs? I mean, a lot of these images, are they coming from an internal SharePoint that's within your same tenant, or are they sometimes out of completely different places, at which point, base64 might be the way to go? I'm curious how much we should prioritize how easily we can reference technically secured images, but they're at least still within the same tenant. So if people want to just kind of comment on chat, that would be nice for us to have some context on.
And Matt, just one point I want to make for the designer aspect is the designer is also open source. So if folks do feel like, hey, I feel like I have some expertise here and I could jump in and help, we do welcome pull requests and people jumping in to help out, because it is an open source project. So if you do want to help out and get some contributions in there, please feel free to reach out to us and we can start helping you join and start up in that.
Yeah, great point. Absolutely. That'd be a nice one to get your feet wet in the adaptive cards library. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Mikhailo. I know you said you had a kind of hard stop at 9:30, so people, get your questions in like right now if you can, but also reach out to us afterwards, or if you have any other thoughts or feedback, and we can route them appropriately. But thank you so much for sharing.
There is a couple more questions in the chat. I'd like to address those. So
Please,
there was a question from Hilton, if that's a new version coming to the GitHub or that particular company implementation. So the version I've demoed is the internal Microsoft implementation of Company Communicator, and right now these changes are not available to to the customers, but we are exploring the ways to either include them into the GitHub template, or maybe like provide company communicator as a part of the platform. That's still being discussed, so no solid answer there. But yeah, the version of demo was just our internal Microsoft implementation. And another note, so like as I was just doing this demo, I've got a new message from our internal company communicator pilot. So I'll just share my screen really quickly and show you how that looks internally. So the other difference that this is no reply bot, and we cannot respond to the bot, but this is the message I've just got about new feature in Teams. So there are like other messages I've been getting. So this is how it looks in the production environment.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everybody for the chat, and Mikhailo for sharing that. So we're going to change gears now and hand it over to Ojasvi. I think as he starts to move some of this over, we'll start to see some other folks from Teams. But for now, we've got our good friend.
As we were talking, I was trying to like set up a live demo and like try to get a few of these cards going. So we will we'll see how that's possible. We'll see if you can give me 5 more minutes. I can maybe get a few more.
Yeah, we can fumble our way through it because we've been chopping up the videos to put on YouTube later, which is just so people realize. So if you have a hard stop or anything, we'll chop up some of the demos and put them on YouTube. So we can hang out and do that.
Sounds good. Okay, yeah. So this is full with adaptive cards. We had I think spoken about this last time in terms of where definitely a very neat feature, just a very simple feature in terms of like making your cards look good and using all that extra real estate. It is now generally available. So we've been talking about it for some time, but you can go ahead and use it if you'd like to. And it's very simple. It's just there's just one property. It's MS Teams with equals full. And that's really all you need to do. And I think in a certain sense, that's like the beauty of adaptive cards, that all of these features are just to leverage this in your existing cards. You really don't have to do much, and I hope that continues to scale as we add more and more features.
Awesome.
The next one is static autocomplete. So, this one again comes very handy if you've got like a bunch of information going through. Let's say you've got like 50, 100 different elements within your choice set. You can't meaningfully expect the user to start scrolling through all of them, right? So you can take an existing choice set, and without having to do anything, you can basically just go ahead and add this property for like style equals filtered, and you have static autocomplete. Again, very simple. You just need to make sure is multi-select is false for this particular case. But other than that, right, like you can use static autocomplete within your cards for Teams today, because now this is also generally available.
Awesome.
So play this video, Matt.
All right.
So I just showed you static autocomplete. Now I'm going to show you what we're working on next. And this might look like static autocomplete for you, but this is like full-on search. So what we're doing over here is we're making a call to your bot's backend, and we're fetching the results. So it says loading results from bots, which is essentially what it's doing. And I mean, like you have a feature like static autocomplete today, but tomorrow this I think is going to be super, super powerful, because you have basically over here like a full search-based front end inside an adaptive card for your application in Teams. I think this is going to go a long way for people, and this is right now in R0, which means it's in one of our lower rings, but eventually it's gonna be available to everyone soon.
Awesome. That's super cool to see it, and this is a great use case of it. And for full context in the adaptive cards version, so just to quickly bring everyone up to speed on what we talked about a couple months ago, Teams is rolling ahead and basically getting early access into what will become version 1.5 features of adaptive cards. So 1.3, we had a bunch of input validation. 1.4, we added the universal action model, which we shared last month. And I think that just some stuff went to GA and Teams. I don't know, just see if you're going to cover some of that later.
Yes, I'll cover some of that later. Yeah.
And so that's going to be 1.4. And then 1.5 is going to add a lot of these even further refinements and some pretty big features, such as this dynamic autocomplete and things like that, which will be coming to the SDKs in 1.5, but available in Teams. As you're seeing sooner than they will be in the SDKs. So to bring everyone kind of up to speed on where the timelines are on some of those things. Yeah, soonish, yeah. Cool. Well, that one's really neat to see.
So this one is information masking, and this is basically, style equals password. And what this allows to do is that if you have a user who wants to send some sensitive information, like, probably like some sort of a password update scenario, they can go ahead and use this field for updating it. In fact, and now this is also in dev preview. And I think, Matt, this is one of those where I have a demo as well. So I'm trying to bring that up.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take the screenshot away from you. Okay, so here it is. It's a simple card. I'm using it inside a message extension. This weren't actually this full flow. I mean, I guess, yeah, it would probably work within a message extension too, but you'd ideally want it from a bot, right? You don't want sending your passwords to a user. Over here, you have a field for password, and then you can see as I toggle through, then it goes away and it's covered and it's secretive. And then when I can toggle back, it's visible. So right now you can go ahead and try this, and this is available in dev preview today, and it's it's working. And we expect to roll this out to GA definitely before build. So within the next month or so. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think what I'll do is I will share the documentation in the group chat for all of these at the end of the call, Matt, so then people can reference it that way.
Perfect. Yeah. I might as well not try to multitask or something. We'll share this stuff at the end.
Okay. Yeah.
And there will be a blog post on this stuff afterwards too, and on YouTube with all the links. So we'll get you what you need.
Yeah. So next we have the person component. This is coming soon. I think this one we've spoken about in the past. The intention over here is, and I'll let Matt do his pitch for adaptive components all up. But this is like the first adaptive component where basically we're taking certain graph entities where it would be too expensive for people to develop as a whole app, right? Like, for example, take this person component with Daniela's image and it's got her name in it, and then we have auto truncation, like in the requested by versus approved by field. If there are more people than what is supported inside, let's say if there are 7 or 8 people and you don't have as much space, then we'll sort of like remove the name. But if there is enough space, then if there is just a single person, then we will show the name. So like properties like these, which if you were to implement them within JavaScript, it would take some amount of effort, and you'd probably have to figure out how to like talk to graph and like fetch out all this data, and fetch the image of the person and all of that. And I think this is going to go a long way in terms of like simplifying a powerful scenario like this. So this is what is called person component. I don't know, Matt, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, exactly. So the thing behind, so I realize these links are hard to click on. This 47, well, impossible to click on. This 4761 is the Adaptive Cards GitHub link for adaptive components, and these are going to be the next major feature, I'd say, for Adaptive Cards, which are these just higher level components. Going to make a lot of sense around graph entities, like Ojasvi mentioned. Like if you just want to put a user in your card, or you just want to drop a file in your card, you can just say, this is a component. What is the name of the component you want? I want to put a user. I want to put a file in there. And then all you have to provide is the properties of that thing. So a file will have different properties. And what these match is the shape of, in this case, in the graph components, it just maps the shape of the API calls that you would make to graph. So if you go to graph.microsoft.com and you have a user object or a set of users, You just pass those as properties directly from the API call, and we'll take care of all the rendering, including a lot of like on-demand style rendering. So the hope is that we'll be able to scale this out to all sorts of things, not just graph entities, but if you want to drop in like a Dropbox file or just basically any type of thing that you might want to present that's in any particular data shape, and you don't really want to have to manually lay it out in the adaptive card, design the UI of the thing, this is going to be our solution for that. So the first one's going to light up in Teams. It's just a user component or a person component. It's not going to be the full adaptive component model. That'll come in version 1.6. But feel free to take a look at that and give us feedback as we're going. Cool. All right, let's go to the next one, and this one is the validation stuff. So take it away.
Yeah. So input validation. So this is Adaptive Cards 1.3. So I have, quite frankly, we were hoping to be in generally available with this one today by the time I spoke this one. So Matt and I had a chat, and we had planned it to be generally available in April. Like, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to make it. This has been pushed out to May. We are generally available in like 3 out of 4 of our clients. So we are almost there, or like 2 out of 3 of our clients. We're almost there. But, we need like a little more time, probably like a month and a half. But definitely, I think before build, we should be able to.
To quickly add on that, so in 1.3, we did add input validation. It's very straightforward. There's is required properties on every input. There's a custom error message that you can provide, and the input validation will just work as you expect for choice sets, for text input. We have additional things on text, for example, like regular expressions. So just getting that experience right on all the platforms, iOS, Android, and making sure they work in all the Teams canvases is part of why that's delayed a little bit. But you can get a feel for how it works. I guess I should have made this a short link, so apologies for that. But you can certainly read up on all these properties, and you can technically start adding them today. So if you want to start adding required validation, you can drop these on your card. These properties are fully backwards compatible, except for label. I guess I should say that as well. We call this feature input validation, but it really was a big input update. So inputs can now have labels, makes your cards significantly more verbose. We were just talking about the payload size increase with base64 images, and labels are much more straightforward. They just write on the input itself. So rather than having a separate text block, or, it basically does reduce your JSON size, and it just makes it a little cleaner. It also is much more accessible by having this label with the input. This new property, we can do much better screen reader and assistive device stuff so that people know that these radio buttons are associated to this label, whereas you don't have that before. So it's really a major update in a bunch of different vectors, not only for user experience, but for assistive devices as well. That said, though, don't start using the label property until this thing fully GAs in May, but you can start adding the required validation.
Yeah, I think we really need to probably advertise the label point of this way more.
Yeah, I agree. I'll take a quick note. I think definitely a blog post really emphasizing, because it just hits on all the things. It's really a triple win benefit. So yeah.
I think we're underselling it a little bit with input validation.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Cool.
Action set flyout. So this is one that, many times over here you'll see in this MSDN magazine, right? You have a core set of asks in this particular bot where you probably either want to read it online, so it's going to take you to a website, or you want to download the issue. But your application or your card might have other sets of actions that are not primarily associated with the card, right? Over here, we have the example for copy, edit, or delete. Well, I mean, this is just informational, but you could think of it as access my account, right? Or access a previous issue, for example, for the magazine over here, which aren't directly related to the use case. So you definitely wouldn't want to give them prime time real estate. And what would you rather do with them? And I think the action overflow menu, the triple dot menu over here makes perfect sense for that. It's a industry-wide construct. A lot of websites support it. There are many places within Teams that support it. So like GitHub, for example, also supports this, right? So just bringing this like natural interface within adaptive cards and allowing you to like stack your actions between certain primary actions that you want the user to focus on versus like certain secondary actions that are important or you would like to be there, but you don't necessarily want to compromise on real estate, because with cards it's all about being, you know, concise and to the point.
And just to add on that, so we do have this action set element too. What he showed here is what Teams is doing some nice UX treatment, that if you have these actions as secondary in the root card, they actually overflow them into this existing ... menu, which is a just nice visual treatment rather than having two ... around. But if you do have actions in the middle of your card, for example, something like this, where you have an action set, you can set modes secondary on those actions, and then you'll get a couple ... So it's pretty composable at the container of the card, but also within the card as well.
And I mean, this is going to be like, if you're thinking of scenarios, like a very powerful scenario is like, you know, a lot of time people have this, I've seen like sales leads cards or like hiring cards or recruitment cards or any other scenario. And you basically want to think of like, you know, like if Matt Hedinger and Matt Hedinger were candidates, right? There would be a certain amount of actions that you would want to take with each of them. And instead of having like, in Teams, you can only have 6 actions. So instead of like, repeating the same action with or like follow-up sales lead with like option with Matt Hedinger number 1 versus Matt Hedinger number 2, you could just go in there and inside the overflow menu and associate the same set of actions with each of them. So when a user goes ahead and takes an action, it's, you know, it's easier and it's more consistent with their view of how things are going to be. Yeah. So the next one is People Picker. This is also another one which is, you know, we're relatively forward in development. And
it came up on the chat earlier too. So whoever had asked that, I was waiting to get to this slide.
So this one is, I think we expect it to be at least in developer preview by build this year. The other good thing is I showed you the search, basically search and adaptive cards. So search and adaptive cards and People Picker, you can think of it as like a little bit of complementary features where within People Picker, you're using the native People Picker option that is provided via Graph. But with search, you can think of it as it's basically advanced type ahead, but like the backend could be your graph, could be your application. So if you have like a repository of users in your own application and you want to like create a People Picker that way, you can definitely do it. The advantage of this over here is going to be that, you know, it's got a little bit of an image because, you know, we can pull the images from Graph and we can share some extra text over here. The full search that I showed earlier, the intent is definitely to go this way, like to see if we can, you know, in the future maybe add images or like a secondary line or stuff. But I think that is like a ways in the future. But you know, two methods of achieving the same thing. But People Picker in general, like you know, we spoke to a lot of card authors, we spoke to SIs and ISVs, and this came up as a top scenario across the board. So pretty excited about releasing this one soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a quick question that I think is no, but then when asked, does the People Picker support groups?
No.
Yeah, okay, I didn't think so. Oh yeah, and this just shows how you do it. So similar to the component model, this is basically how you opt into People Picker. We have a new property called choices.data. This is where you tell us where the data comes from for these choices. And so if you just want to query from your bot, like we showed on the Xbox card, that you're just basically filtering a set of products or games or whatever, this is just the data set is whatever you want. But if you specify the data set of graph.microsoft.com/users, that's Teams's queue and other apps' queue to pull from the directory. So your bot actually doesn't have to respond with this. We'll hook it in automatically. And there is the ability to filter these. I don't think we show it, but you can filter it to, say, the current context, which if you're in, say, a group chat, it'll be able to filter the list of users to that group chat, or if you're in a channel. So we do have the ability to show the whole directory or just a subset, but not currently a group in that case. Cool. And then we had this slide in here.
Yeah. So I think switching
nice.
gears.
Yeah, I see where you're going with.
Yeah. Yeah. So switching gears a little bit, right? Like this is the adaptive cards community call, and you are familiar with the fact that adaptive cards are available on Outlook, Teams, WebChat, Cortana, your own applications like Windows Timeline, and across the board, like layout and rendering is consistent, action handling is not. And you have probably seen this slide before, so you know what's coming next.
Yeah.
So we have the current inconsistent action model. If you want to create the same card within Teams, one uses action.submit, the other uses action.http. While in principle and in spirit, you're effectively creating basically the same card, you have to do something slightly different. Now, the new universal action model, we just wanted to share with you. It's generally available right now, so you can go ahead and use action.execute.
In just Teams, right?
In just Teams, yes.
Yes.
So you can use action.execute and it's going to work within Teams, and those cards are going to be available over there. Yeah.
And so the big update here is that it went GA into Teams, like I think this morning, or within a couple of days. The reason I went through it kind of quickly is because I did want to leave some time for Q&A. But this was covered in detail last month, so I totally get that the blog is behind. That's my fault. That's on me. But the M365 Dev channel on YouTube does have all the community calls. So if you look at the March community call, we did a total deep dive into this universal action model, and this is going to let you write a single card with a single backend, a bot-based backend that works for both Outlook and Teams. And the exciting thing is that it's now GA in Teams, and we'll expect it to be in Outlook, which is, again, our 1.4 release. The expectation is that by the Build conference, which is the end of May, that both Teams and Outlook will be on 1.4, and you'll be able to start using all this stuff in GA. So if you're curious on more of the universal action model, definitely I think we answered a ton of questions. It also adds a bunch of really cool features like role-based views that you can do much better, like sequential flows. And actually, did we have like some demos here too?
Yeah, we had slides for that,
Gotcha.
right? Yeah, so at least the Teams side of like universal actions, universal adaptive cards is GA, but if you move forward, so like the context is like, sometimes you have multiple people operating in a collaborative setting where certain people might want access to like different actions or information based on like the type of role that they're performing, right? If you have a manager or an account executive versus they probably want to have access to the same case, but one probably has a workflow where they can approve or deny a particular workflow, and the other one cannot. They can probably just request it and view it, right? So over here, like if you have like a requester versus someone who has the power, like Marie, who is Daniela's boss, who has the power to like approve, reject, or ask for more details with regards to a particular request, like she can do it. And the only way you can sort of support this within the same adaptive card is through universal actions and contextual views. So contextual views are in developer preview today. We definitely aim for this to be in generally available by build this year. But yeah, if you can totally go and check this out today if you'd like to.
Awesome. Yeah, I think this is a really cool, pretty huge enhancement. Is this a video? Oh yeah, this is their
video. But if
does have
we're short on
audio,
time, I think we can skip it. It does have audio, but we've shared this in the past, and
So I think just in the name of time, just to leave time for Q&A, we will share all this. This will be available, but this is really just showing the power of the role-based views working not only in Teams, so if you have a certain permission over the card, but also in Outlook. So a lot of really cool stuff there. Let me really briefly say, we talked a little bit about features. I saw in the chat a lot of good feature requests. aka.ms/AC roadmap is the place to go to see what we're working on, what's under consideration, and also easily vote on things. All we need is an email address. You don't have to create an account. A bunch of different links. Check out the adaptive card source code. If you want to help us with some of those designer enhancements, we would absolutely welcome those PRs and certainly help you get started too. There's a bunch of other M365 developer community calls. I'll show those here. Definitely check those out. We will see you again on May 13th at 9 a.m. PST, second Thursday of every month. We'll see you here. And with that, I'm going to switch over to Q&A. Huge thanks to Otisfi, Mikhailo for sharing this stuff. The chat was super active today. We're going to take some time and have to go through some of that. But if you didn't get an answer to your question and it is pressing, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll start to go through those. And John, I know you were following along, some of the other folks on the call, Nikita, there's some Adaptive Cards dev team. So if you guys want to also tackle some of these, please feel free.
Just one thing I wanted to quickly call out. I was trying to follow all the issues people are having on chat. If I wasn't able to answer your question, please reach out into our GitHub repo that I just linked and file some issues, and we can start tracking down and looking at some of the issues you're having with cards there. So once again, any issues you're having, file them in GitHub, and we can start communicating there and start tracking them down and try and solve your issues.
Awesome. Okay, I see one hand up. Let me switch over to that. Since it's just one person, feel free to unmute and.
Okay. So the role-based view that was shown earlier, that we can post it in a Teams channel and it will dynamically show the end user, depending on their role, the actions that they can take, correct? That's the kind of capability we'll be getting.
Yes.
Awesome. Great. Yeah. And has anyone looked into, if they're waiting for an adaptive CAD response, is there a scenario that that somebody might have already come to? Again, this is not specifically for the technical team, but from a process standpoint, I have been I've gotten this request from multiple people where they want to cancel an approval in between the flow because the user who you sent to the card has left the organization, is on a long week or an emergency leave. So has anyone looked into these scenarios where we can, in the middle, switch the flow or do something from the back end to reassign it and take over a send over adaptive card or have an expiry set to it, something like that?
So I think, Jaspreet, when you send the adaptive card from your bot, right, you basically pretty much own the content inside the card. So
we're not using bot, we're using Flow right now to send those cards. So that's where it gets a little tricky because I don't have the full control over the return parameters and when it gets showed up so.
I see. Yeah, if you were, that makes sense. If this was done from an application, right, you could basically do anything that you wanted with it.
Right. Yeah.
I think within the parameters of Flow, I don't know. I think that's a good question for Harish, Matt.
Yeah, within certainly it is, and Tomasz on this call has been a friend of ours to make sure we're doing what's best for Power users, Power Automate users. I'm not actually sure what the latest, like how this is going to roll out, how it's going to expose itself through a flow. So we'll probably have to get back to you on that. I know there are threads going on though, and we've been talking with some of the, Tomasz is a Power Platform MVP and some other folks maybe as well. So we are reaching out to him on how best to expose that through the product, but I don't have a lot of specifics on how that'll look right now in a flow.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Craig?
So I think you probably answered what you're probably going to just repeat yourself, but mine was just making sure with everything that's being showed with Teams eventually getting to the 1.4 with that post to adaptive card is people picker, the action.execute and the with going to be available. And also with that action.execute, when that updates, is that going to break like previous Power Automates that I have with an action?
I don't think you can use action.execute within Flowbot today.
Not as of now.
Is the with going to be available in the Power Automate?
That should work. You will just have to make sure you add that property to your card payload.
Okay.
And it's just to go over to it real quick. It's just it's an MS Teams and then a with property.
Yeah, if you could put that back, I would just do a real quick screenshot.
Yeah, right there.
And then the people picker one, is that not going to be a possibility or something maybe?
People picker should work from Flow once it's available. I guess it's in dev preview right now.
Right now.
Yeah, this I am completely speculating. I have not heard confirmation that would work, but the only reason that I know Flow is different is that it goes through a Flow bot. And so if the generic Data.query, the choices data set, like if your bot needs to respond with the list of choices, Flowbot or Power Automate needs to give a way to answer to that. And so I don't think that will work currently. Like you would have to write a bot with code to respond to it, and we'll have to plumb that through Flow. But the people picker in particular is handled directly from within Teams. So I think with this, that should start to work. And I'm definitely caveating that with it should. I don't see why.
Right. Which
having a hard
I think
time
that'd be awesome, because then we could sit there like, hey, you could have it where pick a person and then kick the approval to that person.
Yeah.
And to clarify one point in general, right? Like action.submit is going to continue working. So if you have existing application, existing bots that use action.submit, existing cards, like all of that is just perfectly fine. Like nothing's changing over there.
Okay. Yeah, Matt knows I was like the previous person that asked this question. It's like, I power user, don't have access to all the big IT stuff at the company. Right. I mean, I have my developer account, which I get to play there, but real world job, I don't get to put it all to use.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's definitely, we'll be keeping that in mind and really seeing how we can nail these experiences once we get them in Teams and then the Adaptive Cards SDKs. And ideally, we'll keep the Power Automate additions as close to the raw SDKs. The thing is, they will require kind of these raw SDKs that we are still baking. Is the kind of the timeline of this stuff.
Right, Matt, and I appreciate, I see where Microsoft's going, and they're definitely trying to make it where, hey, us power users, we could pretty much like do it without having to tap IT all the time, because they don't got time to deal with what the business needs. And I'm that in between the business and IT. I do solutions for the business because I get both sides.
Gotcha. Yeah. Badruddin, I think you had your hand up, but then it quickly went off. So maybe you got an answer.
No, I have one clarification. It's about a width. So Adaptive Card width is available from version 1.2, or the previous versions also supported?
This width should work on any version. It's in a custom property as denoted by this MS Teams. So this only works within Teams, but it should be supported on all Adaptive Card versions.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, thank you.
Cool. Tim?
I was just interested with all the features we've just seen, and there's sort of a gap between the libraries, the SDKs, and what's possible in Microsoft Teams. So will you ever get all these things into the SDKs?
Yeah, absolutely. These will all be into the SDKs. Some of them are further along. Some of them are being coded up as we speak in the GitHub repo. Some of them we haven't fully started on yet, but we don't have exact timelines. I remember last month it was definitely like soonish. We're still figuring out the ETAs on that. But aside from anything that starts with like MS Teams like this, they'll be coming into the SDKs throughout the year.
So including the people picker and things where the card needs to load data on its own and all that.
Yes, people picker will. The only thing I'll caveat there is we are hoping to come up with a plan to be able to reuse the Fluent UI controls. We don't want to build in a custom people picker control for every platform. There's some logistics we have to figure out with that. We're not sure how possible that's going to be. So we might have a degraded people picker experience out of the bare bones SDK. It might not be as full featured as the one you see in Teams. But that's a general Adaptive Cards thing anyway. We use what the platform provides for UI, and we make it as good as we can. So we're still going to figure that out, but I expect that plan to we can start socializing that more over the coming months.
Thank you.
Cool. Saw one other hand go up. It's hard to toggle back and forth between the chat and the people, so feel free to unmute if you had a question.
I just had a question regarding, do you guys have any usage data? So a lot of these meetings we tend to discuss when things are available in Teams, but these cards can be used on other platforms. Do you have any idea how they're actually being used in the real world? Is it like 99% Teams, 1% everything else?
I definitely don't think it's that. We have access to Microsoft platform data. So we know how many cards go through Teams. We know how many cards get delivered through Outlook. There's quite a few through both. And Outlook, we also track how many actions get invoked. And those numbers are fantastic. Like the people getting actionable emails who haven't moved, completely to Teams, or a lot of their workflows is email, like those actionable emails have been significant productivity enhancers for users. That said, we do not have telemetry in the SDKs themselves. So if someone out there, some big name company, some small startup is using our libraries to render adaptive cards on iOS or Android, we will have no idea unless they reach out to us, which is a bummer. But also, we didn't want to just drop random telemetry that calls into Microsoft for using an open source library. So we made what I believe is the right call for an open source project, but it does mean we're limited as far as who in the greater world is using adaptive cards. We do know some of our bigger partners on the call that join us. So Cisco WebEx uses adaptive cards for their platform as well. So they have some data. We've announced, so SAP uses adaptive cards. We don't have telemetry for either of those. But there has been some good broader industry adoption, but unless they tell us, we don't really know.
Thank you.
Cool. I appreciate such a lively conversation. Thank you all for joining this month. We'll scrub the chat. Thank you for everyone who helped out in the chat. Thank you, Ajasvi, Nikita, for starting to share some of the more team stuff, and appreciate everything you guys are doing with adaptive cards. We will see you next month. Thank you so much.
Thank you.